Hi everyone, Dr. Nastel here. I am going through your Alvarez analyses and we'll have additional feedback posted by tomorrow. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about what I'm seeing and how we can use this information moving forward. Um, so let's head over to content. So just a reminder, each week, all of the content is organized by week. So week 1, click here. We'll scroll down to the different readings. Once you've gone through the Alvarez assignment, even the article as well as the initial assignment, I think it's useful to go back to the reading suggestions that are posted here. So asking yourself these kinds of questions, taking notes on this kind of information gives you more writing to use in your next assignment. These are the kinds of critical thinking questions that uh, people love in higher education. So there's ideas on how you can take notes as you're reading, as well as what you should take your notes on, with the idea that, yes, we're reading information to learn more. We're trying to get the content, but we're also trying to extend it, to analyze it, to break it down and think about what it means in a bigger picture. So if you haven't checked this section out, or if you did and you completed your assignment, I recommend you go back to this before you start working on the more polished analysis. Okay. So in the Alvarez assignment, I also wanted to give you some information about where to find some of the information about where this was published, what the genre is, things like that. Most of you wrote about how it was pretty obvious that Alvarez did not write for a really general public audience, and wasn't even really writing for students. The syllabus, of course, which starts on page 159, the syllabus is written for students. Students who are going to take a 400 level class, so typically juniors and seniors. But the rest of this was published in a scholarly peer-reviewed journal called Composition Studies. And even if we didn't know that, we know that the language he uses, the kinds of research he provides, the details he includes and the details he omits, all of that information lets us know a little bit about who he's writing for and why he's writing it. So Composition Studies is, like I said, a scholarly peer-reviewed journal written for professionals in the field of rhetoric and composition. So people like me, I read the journal issue and I saw this article and I thought it was interesting. And just like you did in your extended analyses, I thought about, well, what are the ways I can apply this to my own teaching? So I found that information at the bottom of the page. Let's see. On the bottom of the first page, we see Composition Studies 45.2, parentheses 2007, 151 to 166. So this is the publication information. We have the journal, the volume is the first number, and then 0.2, that's the issue number. So that would be like, this is the 45th year that Composition Studies has published, or it's their 45th volume, and then it's the second issue within that volume. So a lot of times, like I said, it is by year, and then maybe they have 1 or 4 issues a year. You can think about it like a magazine that you might read or might see at the doctor's office. Usually comes out monthly, so it's the same kind of thing. It was published in 2017, and the page ranges from 151 to 166. We also know by looking at headings, so when the font is bigger and bolder, that gives us different sections or different pieces of information about the text. So this one has course designs in the biggest, boldest text. This indicates it's a totally separate section. And because I know a little bit about the journal, I know that this is a specific section of the journal dedicated to teachers writing about what they teach. So this is not like a traditional article, which many of you noted. It's not a necessarily empirical study of what students learned or what the community got out of this. It's not even really a qualitative study of how the interviewed people felt about the work. This is an explanation of how and why Alvarez created this course. So considering its audience of other writing teachers and its genre, a course design description, it seems to me like a pretty successful text. If this were designed to recruit students to take the class, no, we definitely would want to see more from the student's perspective. Or if this were a how to work with community members, no, not successful. He doesn't include the perspective of the community members and doesn't address concerns about ethical relationship building or representation. So all of the concerns that you addressed in your extensions, I thought were really, really great. And they let me, I think that those kinds of observations and extensions are helping us think really critically about how important it is that we make sure the strategies we use, the styles we use, even like the different kinds of writing choices we make, all of that fits into our audience, our setting, and fits with our purpose. So I also wanted to draw your attention to a new section I have created. Let's see, in weekly content. So each week I'm going to post, I'm sorry, it's in content, not weekly content. But each week I'll post my observations and my suggestions or questions, things to kind of think about as you proceed with the class, just like this video. So I will also typically collect information from your own submissions for us to look at a little bit more closely and for you to use as springboards for your own ideas. So what I've done this week so far is compiled the different kinds of extensions or suggestions that you identified for this Alvarez article. So many people wrote about how important it was to understand Alvarez's own background, to understand why the course was important to him, how the course has changed, the student perspectives, the relationship between food and Mexican culture, more perspectives from the families he included, questions about why he limited it to Mexican cuisine. Of course, Alvarez talks a little bit about that, but many of you wanted to know more information about that. So I encourage you to take a look at this to help you think about the article in a new way, much like we would if we were having an in-person discussion with the class about this text. I think that the ideas here can help you be more aware of what other people are thinking, but also help you feel more confident in your own ideas. So you might read something you disagree with, and then that helps you understand, like, no, I was thinking about this in this other way, and I like that idea, that I'm going to stick with it. So this is important for this assignment. It's also important for us to hang on to these ideas, to think about how we can use everything we're doing in this class for our final projects. Let's see. So I wanted to give you a suggestion of how this initial work could become a final project. So one person's extension talked about how it felt a little bit invasive because of our political situation. So we know that the political climate regarding immigration is it's pretty tense right now. So this person was wondering, how did Alvarez talk about that with his students as well as with the community members? What kinds of protections were in place, or what kinds of ethical considerations did the students and the community members have? If, what would happen if someone were undocumented, and talked about that with a student who then wrote about it on social media. So these are really important questions, and what I was thinking is, if this student wanted to extend it, or if any of you were interested in that kind of thing, the things you could start thinking about now for your final project would be like, how do researchers protect the identities of their subjects? Or how do researchers ethically involve themselves in their work? Many of you talked about that Alvarez, who comes from a Mexican American or Chicano background, was he too biased? Sorry about that. Was he too biased? Was he too narrow in scope? So you could think about, like, what is the relationship between the researcher and what they research? What's the relationship between a researcher and their subjects? We could talk about the ethics of white people investigating a different culture or a different ethnicity or different race, or people from the North investigating something that happens in the South. So you could kind of start with any of those big ideas that are presented here and turn those into the beginning of a topic that you kind of keep in the back of your mind for the first 2 weeks of our class, and then start thinking about, which I'll show you, start thinking about ways that you could extend it even more for yourself. So all this to say, I thought that you guys did a great job with these extensions. I was really excited to see all of the different ideas you're tackling. I thought that the information you provided certainly would have enriched Alvarez's discussion, and basically everything on this list would be really interesting for you to explore further. So I will be in touch again soon with more feedback.